something shifted behind the palace walls. And for once, the cameras weren't there to catch it. No official statement, no leaked memo, just a change in tone, a change in posture, a change in the air around two people who have spent nearly 2 decades presenting a united front to the world. Reports began circulating that King Charles had grown distant toward Queen Camilla, and that the trigger, according to several royal watchers, traced back to a document connected to Prince William. What was in it? Why would it matter enough to alter the mood of a monarchy already navigating illness, transition, and public scrutiny? Before drawing conclusions, it's worth separating what has actually been reported from what remains speculation dressed as certainty, because the real story, as always, is more nuanced than any headline can capture. To understand why any tension between Charles and Camilla would generate such intense public interest, you have to look back at the road that brought them here. Their relationship, one of the most scrutinized in modern royal history, survived decades of scandal, public disapproval, and one of the most painful chapters in the monarchy's recent past. The collapse of Charles's marriage to Diana, Princess of Wales. Camilla was, for years, cast as the outsider, the reason blamed for a fractured fairy tale. It took an extraordinary, slow-building campaign of public rehabilitation, chronicled by royal historians like Penny Junor and Sally Bedell-Smith, to shift public perception. By the time Charles and Camilla married in 2005, in a civil ceremony at Windsor Guildhall, much of Britain had softened, though not universally. Camilla's title of Duchess of Cornwall, deliberately modest at the time, signaled an awareness that the monarchy was still testing the waters of her acceptance. That caution defined much of Camilla's public journey for years afterward. She kept a lower profile than most senior royals, avoided controversy, and slowly built a reputation as a steady, understated presence beside Charles. When Queen Elizabeth II, in her Platinum Jubilee message of February 2022, formally expressed her wish that Camilla be known as Queen Consort when Charles ascended the throne, it was seen as a final seal of approval from the one person whose opinion mattered most to the British public's sense of legitimacy. That single sentence, delivered by the late Queen, effectively ended decades of uncertainty about Camilla's future role. Yet even with that public endorsement, questions about Camilla's place within the modern monarchy never fully disappeared, particularly among younger royals who represent the institution's next generational shift. Prince William, as heir apparent, has spent recent years quietly reshaping how he wants a monarchy to operate once he becomes king. Royal correspondents such as Robert Hardman, author of several detailed books on the monarchy's inner workings, have described William as someone deeply focused on modernizing royal operations, trimming costs, and reconsidering which family members should hold official roles and public duties going forward. This vision, often referred to in media coverage as a slimmed-down monarchy, has been a recurring theme since King Charles first spoke about it publicly years before his own accession. It's within this broader context that the phrase William's bombshell report needs to be understood carefully. There is no verified, published royal document proving the existence of a secret report authored by William that led to a dramatic falling out with Camilla. What does exist, according to multiple royal biographers and journalists covering the Windsor family, are ongoing conversations, some conducted informally and some through official channels, about how the monarchy should be structured in the coming decade. William has reportedly voiced opinions on reducing the number of working royals, focusing public funding and attention on a tighter circle, and preparing the institution for long-term sustainability. These are not secrets whispered in shadowy corridors. They align closely with statements Charles himself has made publicly about wanting a more streamlined, cost-conscious royal family. Where speculation enters is in how these institutional conversations might personally affect Camilla. Some royal commentators have suggested that any serious discussion about narrowing the monarchy's public-facing roles naturally raises questions about the future involvement of a queen consort who joined the royal fold later in life and carries a complicated public history. It is entirely plausible, and has been suggested in various royal-watching circles, that William's priorities as a future king differ in tone and emphasis from his father's approach, particularly regarding which figures should remain central to the monarchy's image. But suggesting that this amounts to Charles freezing Camilla out, based on a single report, moves well beyond anything documented or confirmed by credible sources. What we do know, from consistent and well-sourced reporting, is that Charles's health crisis, publicly disclosed in February 2024 when Buckingham Palace confirmed his cancer diagnosis, dramatically reshaped the working dynamics of the royal family almost overnight. With Charles temporarily stepping back from public duties for treatment, Camilla took on a heavier share of official engagements, while William found himself balancing his own responsibilities with his wife Catherine's simultaneous health battle, also disclosed that same year. This period placed enormous pressure on a smaller circle of working royals, intensifying scrutiny over who could shoulder institutional duties long-term and forcing candid, necessary conversations about the monarchy's operational future. It's reasonable to imagine that during this period, discussions about long-term planning, succession logistics, and public role allocation became more urgent, not because of personal conflict, but because illness forced timelines that nobody had planned for. Camilla, despite her age and the physical demands of an expanded workload, largely rose to the occasion, drawing praise even from commentators who had once been skeptical of her public standing. Ingrid Seward, editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine and a veteran royal biographer, has repeatedly noted in her writing that Camilla's steadying presence during Charles's illness reinforced rather than undermined her position within the family. This detail matters because it directly complicates any narrative suggesting she was being quietly pushed aside. Still, royal history teaches us that institutional tension and personal relationships often blur together in ways the public never fully sees. Even without evidence of an actual rift, it would not be unprecedented for internal disagreements about the monarchy's future to create friction between family members holding different visions for what that future should look like. Queen Elizabeth II herself, over her 70-year reign, quietly managed disagreements among her children and advisors regarding modernization, funding, and public image, disagreements that occasionally surface in muted, indirect ways rather than dramatic public fallout. The Windsor family, by design and necessity, tends to project stability outward while working through disagreements privately, often for years before any resolution becomes visible. So when headlines suggest Charles has frozen out Camilla following a report from William, the responsible interpretation is this. There are documented, ongoing conversations about the monarchy's structural future. William has known priorities that occasionally diverge from his father's more traditional approach, and Camilla's long-term role remains a subject of genuine public and institutional interest, given her complicated history. What isn't documented is any confirmed personal rupture between Charles and Camilla stemming from a single identifiable report. Until Buckingham Palace or credible, named sources confirm such details, this remains firmly in the territory of media speculation rather than established fact. What makes this story resonate with so many people isn't just royal gossip. It's the deeply human questions underneath it. How do families navigate power, aging, and legacy while staying connected to one another? How does someone who fought for decades to earn public trust, as Camilla did, cope with the uncertainty of institutional change beyond her control? And how does a future king balance respect for his father's choices with his own vision for an institution he'll one day be responsible for entirely? These aren't questions unique to royalty. They mirror struggles found in ordinary families confronting succession, health crises, and generational change, just magnified under the unforgiving glare of global attention. Perhaps that's why this story, regardless of how much of it holds up to scrutiny, continues to capture public imagination. It touches something universally recognizable. The fear of being left behind, the complexity of loyalty, and the quiet, often unspoken tensions that exist within even the most functional families. Charles and Camilla's journey, marked by scandal, rehabilitation, and finally acceptance, was never going to end simply. As the monarchy continues to evolve under the weight of illness, generational transition, and public expectation, the real story may not be one of sudden betrayal or dramatic freezing out, but something quieter and more human. Two people and an entire family try to hold something fragile together while the world keeps watching for cracks that may or may not be there.